Hello everyone, my name is Arjan and welcome to Atelier AG. In the last video I made this trophy for the Slugwizard event, and even though I made the trophy I still wanted to join, so I made this sculpture. This year's prompt was to create a Slugwizard or Squid Gnomes, and as you can tell from the thumbnail and from this sculpture, I chose to make Squid Gnomes. First, I drew the dimensions of the glass dome in a 1:1 scale and sketched out my ideas for this sculpture. Using some metal wire, aluminum foil and polymer clay, I quickly created the rocky base. As per usual, I textured the clay with several rocks and smoothed them with a little isopropyl alcohol. With the base in the oven, I started working on the armatures for the gnomes. I twisted 2 long pieces of wire together and created 3 similarly sized armatures. With an extra piece of wire, I also made an armature for the long heads. Because I sketched my design in a 1:1 scale, I could use it to bend the limbs on the right places. After that, I took the base and bent the armatures into the desired position. Next up was some actual sculpting. I always start with a thin layer of green stuff that I leave to set, and after that I sculpt small parts of the figure, leaving them to set in between sculpting sessions. Since I was working on 3 sculpts for this diorama, I could switch between them to be sure they had completely set before sculpting the next part. I wanted these squid gnomes to look very skinny and creepy, so I made their limbs very spiky and long, and I let their rib cages be very visible. I was also trying to give each squid a different personality, and I'm very curious to hear if you think I achieved this. You can let me know in the comments if you agree or if you would have changed some things. I sculpted the tentacles beforehand and I let them cure on this white lid that you can see here. I made quite a lot more than I needed so that I could choose which one worked best on the face. I attached them with another piece of green stuff and blended them into the face. I really like how they turned out, and I'm definitely going to be using this technique in the future. A final detail for the heads were these fin-like things on the sides. A lot of the design choices I made for these squid gnomes came very directly from actual squids. The squid heads combined with a humanoid body came out amazingly creepy and strangely cute at the same time. Something I really wanted to try for this piece was to sculpt open hands with thin, spindly fingers. I have had an idea for how to do this for a while now, and I finally tried it. I took the thin wire out of garbage bag binders and I cut it into pieces a little bit longer than I needed. I took 5 pieces for each hand and I twisted them tightly together. I attached it to the forearm with a piece of green stuff and I left it to cure. With the armature firmly attached to the rest of the sculpt, I could cut the fingers to length and pose them as I wanted. Then I used liquid green stuff and painted it over the armature. I never really had a good use for liquid green stuff, but now I finally do. I applied 2 layers of liquid green stuff to add a little bit of thickness to the fingers. To finish the hands, I sculpted the back of the hands with some regular green stuff. These minis are a little bit bigger than a regular 28mm wargaming size, but I can't wait to try this method on a smaller mini. I am always looking at the hands of manufactured minis and trying to figure out if I could sculpt hands as detailed as those, and I think I finally found a way. I glued the 3 gnomes to the base and sculpted the feet. I also gave them a little loincloth to make them a little bit more presentable. With the sculpting done, I decided to paint the first gnome off camera to do some experiments for the color scheme. I started with a grey base coat and I put a dark blue wash all over them. After that, I dry brushed a kind of pastel yellow layer to basically function as a zenithal undercoating. I knew I wanted the gnomes to be a super vibrant pink, and I read somewhere that a yellow undercoat works well for that. The reason I chose a pastel yellow is because yellow is a very difficult color to get good coverage on, especially on the dark blue. Also, the fluorescent pink that I'm using is the worst covering paint I've ever seen, and the pastel yellow helps with that as well. To highlight the pink a little bit more, I mixed in a little bit of white. So far, I only used a wash and dry brushing on these sculpts, and I love how they turned out very dirty looking, but they lost a little bit of vibrancy. To bring this back, I decided to glaze a deep purple ink into all the shadows. For the base, I took a very similar approach as the Squid Gnomes. I dry brushed a blue over the rocks, and after that I dry brushed a fluorescent yellow over everything. The coverage for this yellow is equally horrible as the pink one, so I took multiple layers to get it nice and colorful. I could not be happier with the results of this project. I really tried to push myself by sculpting very intricate details like the hands and the tentacles, and I'm glad it worked out this nice. Also, the experiment with fluorescent paints was a great experience that looks amazing in my opinion. As always, I'm very curious to hear your opinion, so please leave a comment. If you want to know more about the Slugwizards event, I have linked everything in the description. You can also find a link to my Instagram, where I regularly post work in progress pictures and small tutorials. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you next time. Goodbye.